Hello, everyone. Welcome to Discover Spiritism Network. We are here tonight to talk about intuition. This is a theme that we discussed in depth in our study group, and we thought it was a good theme, a good subject to share with you all. So I'm Morjana Signorin, and I'm here with my friend.
I'm Jose Rodriguez.
And I'm Evelyn Gonoretsky.
Yeah, so Joe, I know you did a really good research in the definitions of intuition. So
I think one of the very first things that we need to say about intuition is that this is a common experience for every human being on Earth. Most of the time we dismiss it, but let's start first with some basic definitions, some common definitions, so we have a ground level understanding, and then from there we build up the discussion of the subject. One definition by Psychology Today is intuition is a process that gives us the ability to know something directly without analytic reasoning, bridging the gap between the conscious and non-conscious part of our minds, right? Further, Wikipedia says intuition is the ability to acquire knowledge without recourse to inference or conscious reasoning. Buddhism finds intuition to be a faculty in the mind of immediate knowledge. Carl Jung, I think most of us know who Carl Jung was, defined intuition as perception via the unconscious, using sense perception only as a starting point, and we will delve into this later on. And then another definition by a later date in Psychology Today. Intuition is essentially the brain on autopilot, performing the actions of processing information without the person's conscious awareness that is operating. It is non-conscious thinking. What do you think, and what have you found about other definitions?
What I have found is that we spirits we follow the divine laws, and as we know, one of the laws that we experience is the reincarnation and the immortality. And because of these two laws, the only three ways we can evolve is through intelligence, willpower, and thoughts. Mm-hmm. So intuition comes into the thoughts that is offered or granted by our Creator. And what I have learned is that intuition comes from our spirit, past life or even this life, and we use that as based. Usually, it's our first thought when we. Our first thought it's our intuition, even though we underestimate what we are thinking sometimes. But I think that the more we evolve, the more in tune we are, the better is our perception of our intuition, and we use that in our everyday life.
So intuition comes from within us.
Within.
Correct.
And is our first reaction to a situation or something based on our previous hundreds of lives that we lived, and we build all the knowledge in previous lives. So it's our as Joe said earlier, our database.
Database, correct.
Database that is within our
That's right.
spirit.
It's an interesting point because intuition, we tend to dismiss intuition. However, we don't realize that we have a powerhouse in this process. Bear in mind that 90% of everything we do is of subconscious nature. Our bodies are controlled by the autonomous nervous system. We don't even think about breathing, heart rate, and all this stuff. So there's a huge intelligence right there that wants our well-being. Since 90% of our processes are subconscious in nature, and that involves the long-term memory, emotions and feelings, habits, relationships, patterns, involuntary functions, creativity, spiritual connections, and even our instinctual behaviors. Well, I think it stands to reason that we have a wealth of information and a powerhouse that in an instant can communicate to us any kind of solution that we need to any situation we face. Sometimes our critical mind gets in the way and we tend to dismiss that first impulse. just to later find out and say, if I would have paid attention to that original thought, I would be better off right now. And again, that's a common experience, right?
Yeah, and one thing that is very important to differentiate is intuition and inspiration.
Hmm.
So, intuition, as we mentioned, is something that comes from within, and inspiration is something that comes from the outside, from incarnated or disincarnate spirits,
Hmm.
impressions that they provide to us. So, can you, one of you, discover a little
Yes,
more about
what I
that?
have learned and researched about inspiration is that we have and receive the best cooperation possible from sublime spirits, collaborators of Jesus, to help us to know, to understand, and to live the truth. Just like an instrument necessary for our inner renovation. The more we get inspired, the more we use these ideas that we get inspired to, the more we evolve and we tune ourselves to this sublime world.
Correct. And that's an interesting point because intuition, again, it's a build-up, it's a database that we build from birth all the way to our present lives, but also we bring uh, a wealth of information of material that we need to work on in order to improve and attain toil towards perfection from our prior successive lives, right? So once we learn, and spiritism is, it's basically the best I would say, with the three aspects of science, religion, and philosophy, is the best way for us to start getting connected to our prior life material. Now, what happens is once we face a particular situation, not only we pull from the database of our existing life, but also we pull from the information we bring forth from our successive reincarnations, right? And usually, some people have heard that gut feeling, that heart impulse, right? Well, it just happens that the heart center and the gut, they are powerful brains too, and they perceive situations, they perceive intentions, they perceive everything around us before even the conscious mind does. And as a result, all this information come together in an instant, and there is the intuition. As we said before, we tend to dismiss it because our critical mind gets on the way. The inspiration portion, that's how we grow our database to the next level because we are receiving new material, new information for our spiritual growth, new information that inspire us to behave in a different way, to change our beliefs. And therefore, once we act upon those, we modify our long-term memory and then it becomes part of an enhanced high-level intuition.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, what I think that it's very important to mention here that this intuitive faculty is universal.
correct.
Everyone has access to this, and through this resource, we receive vibrations or thoughts that contribute and can be towards religious, can be philosophic, scientific, can be towards anything that we have experienced in the past, right?
Correct, 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 correct. So, if we were to synthesize uh, how how intuition works, right? Well, first we receive a stimuli through our five senses, right? And we as spiritists know that that stimuli can come even beyond our five senses, right? The conscious mind has a limited focus on the stimuli. Sometimes we tend to focus on things, but we miss what is happening in our surroundings. Not so with our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is capturing everything, right? It's just like a recorder. Uh, the conscious mind is limited in its capability to observe and provide its analytical function. The subconscious mind is capturing everything. The subconscious mind processes the information faster and holistically through relationships, patterns, and long-term memory. That intelligence that we talk about that has 90% of our processes as humans can connect through patterns, through long-term memory and relationships, all the data and produce an intuition that will come forth like an idea, like a voice, a feeling. And like I said before, if we pay attention closer, we are going to develop it even stronger and learn to trust it even more,
Yeah.
right?
And how can we develop, improve our intuition?
It is very interesting. Meditation is one of the aspects, and the aspect of meditation is learn how to quiet ourselves, okay, to the point that we start listening, not the chatter that happens in our mind. Granted, initially you will have some chatter going on, but the more you get into the meditative state, you start diminishing the chatter and beginning to pay attention to what are the things that are coming from within, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people suggest that if you take a natural setting like a forest, like go to the ocean or the beach, and for a walk in a very nice pathway, right? And stop the talk and learn to observe and have nature, so to speak to you, right? In other words, become an active observant of everything around you. All of a sudden, you start developing the hearing, the sensing of the intuition, so you can actually begin to know how it feels, begin to know what messages come forth, and all of a sudden, you strengthen the, uh, the intuitive power. The other thing is very important, prayer. Praying to our spirit guides, our mentors, so we can learn and get empowered to listen to the best and precious treasure that we have, which is our spirit.
Yeah. So cultivate good, positive thoughts.
Good positive thoughts.
Be open to, be willing to listen to yourself
Correct.
and be open to the new, because sometimes we might get an intuition, and as you said, we might get, okay, this is just put it aside and
Yeah, correct.
keep
Correct.
moving. So we have to be open to
Yes.
listen to ourselves as
Correct.
well, right?
Yes. To simplify what I understood about what Joe said was that we all have the power of intuition in our consciousness, and we all can improve this possibility as long as we elevate ourselves spiritually, following the laws of progress. Which the more we learn, all this learning becomes knowledge. In all this, elevating ourselves improve our intuition, how we more and more listen to ourselves, because we are in this how I'm gonna say, when you said that we meditate or when we are praying, we get to a level with our inner
Vibrational
self,
level.
in a very good vibrational um, surrounding,
Mhm.
that it's like really in tune with our inner and our intuitions, that we listen more and we are more open to pay attention to this.
Correct. Correct.
So one thing that I would like to add is about intuitive mediumship.
Mediumship.
So we discussed a little bit in our study group about that, and the intuitive medium is the interpreter of the message. So whenever the medium receives a message, if he or she processes the message in his mind and say, okay, this makes sense, let me pass forward. This is the intuitive mediumship. Um, Other types of mediumship might be when the medium receives a message and just pass along. This doesn't involve intuitive,
Exactly.
the intuitive process.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's the key word. It's not that the intuitive medium is using his past lives knowledge, his database knowledge. It's just that he's receiving the message, processing the message, and passing along. So that's my understanding of the
Well,
subject.
the thing is, the key is in the word when the medium says this makes sense.
Yeah.
In virtue of what that the medium says it makes sense. It makes sense based on all the information that I have for it to make sense, right?
Yes.
So I think Allan Kardec, or is it uh, Dennis? Leon Dennis that says that initially mediumship it's mostly intuitive, and then as the medium develops, it's a clear channel of communication afterwards, right? So that's the reason why, again, intuition in the context of mediumship, right, uh, is something that yes we use. Secondly, we need the group, the mediumship group, to actually help us filter the information that comes forth, because and this is subject for another type. You know, we can easily fall into animism or mystification, which is a little bit, we probably discuss this later on. But it is, how do we know that the information that we are getting is a true and pure message from the spirit and not a tainted one from our intuitive process, right?
Which is not, there's nothing wrong
No,
with
there's nothing wrong.
having the
It's just
message from
exactly. There's nothing
our
wrong.
own.
Correct.
Yeah, so
So I would say again, intuition is a common experience for every human living on the planet, right? The difference between the ones that actually use intuition to their benefit and evolution are the ones that pay close attention to that whisper that comes from within. Most of the time we dismiss it, right? But it's because two things are, in my mind, not understood. One, that we do have a powerhouse. More than 90% of our processes are subconscious, and the information can be put together in an instant because all these the subconscious mind can integrate all this information that the conscious mind cannot do, right? And secondly, once we begin studying spiritism, we learn that we are not living in isolation. Our progressive reincarnations bring to us material that, one, we need to expiate and work on, and secondly, a wealth of information as we have this accumulated knowledge and experience from our prior lives. And once we learn how to tune in into this process, our intuition gets enhanced, and there is more than enough reason for us to trust when we listen to that voice.
I just wanted to add something, something else.
Mhm.
I think we
That's okay.
today we overspoke, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you get the concepts wrong, especially the intuition and inspiration. So that's why it's good to have to know better what both are, because I had the intuition concept wrong. So when we were discussing in our class, I gave the example like, oh, for me, intuition is something that I instantly know. And I gave the example as my friend came to my house, and the moment I saw her, I knew that she was pregnant, and I thought, oh, that's intuition. No, that was not intuition. That could have been inspiration, or that could have been the pheromones that she
Exactly.
was.
That you.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I had the concept, the intuition concept wrong in my head as well. So
I, I think I think that's a harsh comment from you. I think we're all learning. We are in the path, right?
Yes.
And to me, there's nothing wrong. Only internalizations and just learning all the way, right?
yeah,
So, but that's the important having a common understanding, a common definition, common understanding. So we actually
yes,
gauge this versus that, right?
yes,
And
exactly.
yeah.
And
So
when we are studying and in a group, so everyone has the concepts aligned, and we
correct.
can move forward. So thank you very much for watching the video, and please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.